Sports Center.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Colonial Sports Center. I'm Kevin Placha. He's Cam Wickline. And Cam, we've got a boatload of action to break down in RMU athletics from this past week.
Absolutely massive week in Colonial sports. We got hockey news, we got lacrosse news, even softball news. But before all of that, breaking news. Kevin, take it away.
That's right. We've got breaking news, as it was announced a couple weeks ago, that star guard for the Colonials, Enoch Cheeks, would be entering the transfer portal for the men's basketball team. He made his decision on where he will be playing his next season of collegiate basketball. He has committed to Dayton. He will be a part of the Dayton Flyers, the A-10 team that made it all the way to the conference championship last season before losing to eventual winner VCU. And for a very forward-heavy lineup like Dayton had, it's definitely going to be a big boost because Cheeks is very athletic. He's very bouncy. He's able to slash off the dribble, but he's also able to shoot threes. So definitely a very good addition to the Dayton Flyers team, but that's where Enoch Cheeks has committed to play basketball next season.
Yeah, Cheeks a heck of a player. They played at Dayton earlier this year, so you have to wonder if that factored into his decision. But Dayton got a heck of a player. RMU, sad to see him go.
Now, moving on to men's lacrosse, they were looking to string together their first two-game win streak of the season as they traveled to Titan Field in Detroit, Michigan to take on the winless Detroit Mercy Titans. As I said, they were winless, so you'd like to see the Colonials get that second win in a row. Let's see how the Colonials fared in Michigan. But unfortunately, the Colonials fell to the before winless Detroit Mercy Titans 14-8. Taggart Clark with 3 goals and an assist. This was a big upset loss for the Colonials looking to string together another win. David Burr with a goal and 2 assists, but it was not enough. Ryan Burney, 4 goals, leading the way for the Titans.
Moving on to the next men's lax game of the week, we go to the Joe versus Cleveland State. We're going to pick it up early in the game. The game's still scoreless, but not for long. Will McLeod is going to go behind the back for one of the best goals you will see all year off of an assist from Liam Keane. Colonials keep going, just a few seconds left in the corner. Nick Pelletier brings it up from behind the net, finds Will Johansson, and lets it rip to give the Colonials a 3-1 lead. James Christophos, a man with a long stick, and a snap one in from long range for his 3rd goal of the season. That makes it 4-1 Colonials. Cleveland State decided they weren't going to go down easy, though. Tic-tac-toe for the goal by Michael Kerr. Cleveland State cuts a deficit to just 2, but the Vikings were going to get one more before half as Gavin Held passes it off to Amiri Austin, who unleashes a missile for the 1 goal. That would make it a 4-3 game at half. Picking it up in the second half, now 5-3 Colonials. David Burr is going to find Colton Lidstone right on the goal's doorstep for the easy goal. Colonials now doubling the Vikings 6-3. Fast forward a few minutes, Gannon Matthews decided he was going to do it all himself, coming down the right side and going short high for the goal. The Vikings would go on a bit of a run as they make it 6-5, but then we pick it up 7-5 as the Colonials would begin to pour it on here as another long stick defender would let one rip from deep. Rowan Hines for his first goal of the year. Up next, we'll see Will Johansson going to carry the ball to the top of the zone, and then he's going to find Taggart Clark, arguably the best player for the Colonials all year. Going to go high, then low for the goal. 10-6 now as the game is pretty much decided for the Colonials. Colton Lidstone is going to find Will McLeod for his 4th goal of the season as he rips that missile short side. That would make the score 11-6, and the final score would hold as the Colonials got their first win of ASUN play.
Switching things over to women's lacrosse, as they were also looking to string together their first 2-game win streak of the season at Joe Walton Stadium as they took on the UC Davis Aggies in what was much better weather than what happened over the past weekend with all the crazy weather. But the Colonials kicked things off in the first period. Early on, Colonials turn it over behind the net. Alana Scott splits the 2 RMU defenders, and she scores through 4 Colonials and the goalie. Not even the Great Wall of China could stop her first goal of the season. Colleen Tips, she takes on an Aggie defender, she gets a lane, and she makes the most of it. Her 9th goal of the season, we see it again, just breaks the defender's ankles, goes through the lane, and scores. Nearing the end of the first period, Jenna Irwin passes to Chelsea Coleman, who gets the angle on the 2 defenders and slides it by the UC Davis goalie. You can see her frustration there. Second period now, Ria Kosan finds Brooke Tokushige, who fires her 12th goal of the season past RMU goalie Jamie Keller. Second half now, Alex Agnew gets the ball behind the net. She's going to outspeed the defender, and she's eventually going to score a 5-hole on Jamie Keller. Agnew is second on the team in goals. Let's see that again. She gets past the defender, and she goes 5-hole right by Keller. Fourth period now. Colonials down 8. Jordan Anderson one-on-one. She scores her 3rd goal of the season to make it 15-8. Jenna Irwin she's going to get the ball. Her first shot is saved, gets it back. Second shot is saved, but she eventually finds the back of the net. Colonials cut the deficit to 5. Moving on now, late in the game, Rhea Kosand, you heard her name before. Alana Scott, you heard her name too. And she puts the dagger in RMU's comeback hopes. Aggies win 17-10. CSN spoke to head coach Katrina Silva after the game for her thoughts.
I'm proud of this group. I thought we played really hard today. I think this is a great lead-in. I don't think there's anybody in our conference that's better than this team, so I think it's what we wanted out of.
Now, folks, we're going to be joined by a man who, in my opinion, has some pretty great style. Our lacrosse analyst, Sam Goldberg. How are you doing?
Doing great. I'm ready to talk some men's and women's lacrosse after this brutal weekend, especially for men's lacrosse.
Yeah. So speaking of men's lacrosse, how do you think that loss against Detroit Mercy, was that a surprise to you?
It was an absolute surprise to me, in all honesty, because I was on the podcast Quick Sticks earlier this week, and I basically guaranteed Robert Morris to beat Detroit Mercy. Now I'm concerned with their next matchup against Mercer. They also have a lot of injury concerns as well. Owen Downs has a broken rib. And Ben Starkey also went down in the Detroit Mercy game with an ankle injury, so the injuries are piling up. I'm expecting a couple of changes to come from Coach McDonald pretty soon.
Sam, kind of piggybacking off of that last question, where does the men's lacrosse team stand right now with their 1-2 record in ASUN conference play?
Where they stand right now, in all honesty, I don't have the most extreme confidence in the men's lacrosse team right now. Their offense just isn't seemed to clicking so far, and it's really concerning to see, especially with how good it was last season. David Bird, don't get me wrong, he's been fantastic for Robert Morris, but however, 1 goal in the last 3 games is kind of concerning for your second leading goal scorer on the team behind Taggart Clark. And then more importantly, and going back to that offense, just not being able to finish off offensive sets. That final pass into the middle just isn't getting there yet, and the chemistry for the team just hasn't gelled yet.
Flipping over to the women's side of things, do you think that tougher non-conference schedule that they've played so far is going to prepare them for MAC play?
Absolutely. The women's lacrosse team is the best team in the MAC, without a question. And the reason why they're having these tough non-conference matchups is to prepare them essentially for the tournament, because they're just going to walk all over the MAC. There's really no competition for them. They're the most dominant team in the MAC. I fully expect them again to be at the top. I just don't see anybody contending with them. I love Notre Dame. I love Notre Dame coming here. I love Ohio State, UC Davis. They put up a really great fight against UC Davis as well, scoring double-digit goals against a really strong opponent in UC Davis. I really like this non-conference schedule that they're putting together, essentially preparing them for the NCAA tournament, which I fully expect them to be at.
Thank you.
Sam, thank you so much for joining us here. Despite that brutal weekend, he's still got some optimism for the women's lacrosse team. Now, when we come back, we've got some hockey action to discuss, including 2 former RMU players that recently won a championship. Stay tuned here on CSC.
Welcome back to Colonial Sports Center. That's CSC women's basketball.
Found my heart out there in the open. Trees make you feel smaller. Can't help but get lost again. If I need a break, know where I'm going. Where the water's flowing, I'd rather be floating. If it's something that can count on to be free.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back to Colonial Sports Center. We've got conference softball in our horizons as the Colonials took on Green Bay, and the weather last weekend in a 3-game series that did eventually get trimmed to a doubleheader. The first two games went perfectly for the Colonials as they won 6-0 behind a beautiful game from Dana Vatakis. Charlotte Grover went 3 for 3 with 4 RBIs, and Elena Kutso-Gianni continued her record chase with another stolen base.
In Game 2 of that doubleheader, the Colonials did look for that doubleheader sweep of the Phoenix, and despite scoring 3 runs in the 5th inning, the Colonials would come up short 5-4. Jane Garver pitched a scoreless 4 1/3 innings in relief, but the early damage had already been done.
Keeping with the softball theme, CSC's very own Nate Fennell went down to the softball field earlier today to watch practice and interview a couple of players and head coach Jex Varner. Nate, take it away.
Hello, I'm Nate Fennell here at the North Athletic Complex. The softball team is off to a 10-14 start so far this season and 2-2 in conference play after splitting with Detroit Mercy and Green Bay. I'm here at the practice today to talk to some of the key players and head coach Jex Varner. Robert Morris traveled to Akron last Tuesday for a 2-game set that saw the Zips prevail in each game by final scores of 2-1 and 13-4. The Colonials then traveled to Green Bay to take on the Phoenix in what was supposed to be a 3-game series. However, due to weather conditions, the teams were only able to play 2 games. Green Bay would respond in the second game, defeating Robert Morris by a final score of 5-4. After his team has found themselves at 2-2 and tied for 4th place in the Horizon League, Coach Varner provides his thoughts on how the conference play has gone thus far.
I think the biggest takeaways are the things that kind of staying on our game and our task. I mean, I think through the first 4 games, we'd allowed the least amount of runs in the conference, but we're only 2-2, and that's the 2 losses that we had. We didn't get the offensive production that we needed.
One issue so far this season for the Colonials has been their batting, as they find themselves 60 points lower than. However, they've shown the ability to work walks at an impressive clip, as they have 97 so far this season, which is tops in. When asked about his thoughts on what the team has been able to do in the box so far this season, Coach Varner provided his thoughts.
Kind of a catch-22. We found ourselves with really good plate discipline, and we've done a pretty good job of working counts and being selective in the zone. But at points, we find ourselves a little too selective, and we get ourselves behind the count. And when you're hitting with 2 strikes, whether it's 1-2, 0-2, 2-2, statistically, I mean, those are the worst counts to hit in, and we know that. So it's finding that balance of understanding how disciplined and good we are in the zone while getting aggressive earlier in the counts, because those are the best.
Jane Garver had an incredible week as she went 11 innings, allowing just 1 earned run in 2 games. She explained to me how she was so dominant in the circle for the Colonials.
I think, so going into last week, and it's actually funny, I think I was on the struggle bus a little bit, and I think it's just kind of making sure that you take every game 1 game at a time and 1 pitch at a time, 1 at bat at a time. Coach Sam and I talked about that a lot coming off of my struggle weekend. We just kind of broke it down and said you have to take it 1 at a time and not bunch it all together so the problem becomes bigger than it is.
Charlotte Grover had an incredible weekend against Green Bay, going 5 for 7 with a double and 5 RBIs. When I asked her about what she has to do to continue this success at the plate, she had this to say.
I think the most important thing for me is just keeping my mentality good. I think I was really calm at the plate, and that was what was really helping me, picking good pitches and just trying to stay through it. So just keeping that up.
Colonials host Kent State this weekend and then begin Horizon League play again next weekend against Northern Kentucky. For CSN, I'm Nate Fennell. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you so much, Nate, for that in-depth look at the RMU softball team. Well, we're going to stick outdoors as the RMU track and field team had their first outdoor event of the season at the Carnegie Mellon Invitational. Tara Gologram has been dominant all season. We're going to see if her skills translate outside at all. So, the Colonials in the Carnegie Mellon Invitational, they placed 5th out of a total 15 teams. Right off the bat, definitely a very good showing for the Colonials. Tara Gologram, as I just mentioned, 1st in the long jump. Gracie Parker 1st in the 100-meter hurdles. And Alicia Moore and Maddie Raymond both picked up 2nd place finishes in the 200-meter and 100-meter dash respectively. A very solid showing for the Colonials in the first outdoor meet of the season.
Over to the basketball side of things, RMU standout forward has been named to the State Farm College Team Skills and 3v3 Championship. After a stellar year from Khalil Spear, you can add this well-deserved honor to his trophy case.
Now, a little bit more about men's basketball, as the season is there's never really enough to talk about when it comes to basketball, as the transfer portal has taken over how teams are coming up with their rosters, especially with smaller schools. Colby Sherwin is here to break down some of the players the Colonials have taken a look at for the 2023-24 season.
Falling to Cleveland State in the Horizon League quarterfinals, the Robert Morris men's basketball team lost 3 top players from their roster, Khalil Spear, Enoch Cheeks, and Michael Green III. To pass the quarterfinals for the first time as members of the Horizon League, head coach Andy Toole has turned to the transfer portal. Here's a breakdown of the players they are looking at. Justin Steers is a senior guard from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He played at Coppin State last year. For the Eagles, he averaged 8.6 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and an assist. He also shot 46.9% from the field. In his career with the Eagles, he averaged just about 7 points per game, 3.9 rebounds a game, and he shot just about 49.2 from the field. Steers has heard from 4 other schools, a former foe from the NEC, Bryant, Cal State Fullerton, Old Dominion, and Fairfield. Next up is Javonte Johnson. The junior guard from Colorado Springs averaged 5.8 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, and shot 45.8% from the field. In his time with the Lobos, he averaged 5.7 points per game, about 3.5 rebounds, and he shot 43.1% from the field. Johnson has heard from 14 other different schools, including Murray State, Colorado State, Wyoming, GCU Montana, Northern Colorado, Bowling Green, Montana State, Utah Valley, Southern Utah, Denver, Jacksonville State, Rice, UC Davis, Townsend, and Seattle. DJ Smith is a sophomore guard from North Little Rock, Arkansas. He played at Little Rock. He averaged 10.4 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, and shot 40% from the field. At his time with the Trojans, he averaged 8.6 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, and shot 38.6 from the field. Smith has heard from Texas A&M Corpus Christi, UTEP, Oral Roberts, Southern Illinois. Bryce Johnson is a sophomore guard from Spokane, Washington. This year for the Cougars, he averaged 9.6 points, 3.9 rebounds, and shot 44.4%. At his time at Chicago State, he averaged 8.7 points, 3.5 rebounds, and shot 42.6% from the field. He's heard from a few schools, including Portland State, UC Riverside, UNC Asheville, Cal State Fullerton, Pacific, Maine, Seattle, Niagara, UMBC, and PVAMU. Leslie Nakirium is a senior forward from Lawrenceville, Georgia. At his time at Longwood, this year he averaged 8.4 points, 3.1 rebounds, and shot 62.8% from the field. At his time with the Lancers, he averaged 7 points, 3.7 rebounds, and shot 60% from the field. He's heard from a few schools, including Georgia State, UNCGC, UNCW, UMBC, Niagara, Bryant, Chattanooga, and LaSalle. Nehemiah Bredson is a junior forward from Stetsboro, Ohio. This year at Rider, he averaged 2.1 points, 1.8 rebounds, and shot 48.1% from the field. At his time with the Riders, he scored 2.4 points, 1.9 rebounds, and shot 42.6% from the field. Schools he's heard from include Brigington, Central Connecticut, St. Francis, and Eastern Michigan. For Colonial Sports Network, I'm Colby Sherwin.
Thanks, Colby, for that in-depth look at a couple players we might see on Andy Toole's squad next year. Coming up next on CSC, we got RMU fans' favorite sport, both men's and women's hockey. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back here on CSC.
What Century means to me as a woman is an opportunity for me to get engaged and involved in things that I really am passionate about and did not have an experience to in other organizations in my life.
I'm very grateful to have, witnessed and covered some great moments on campus, such as the inauguration of Dr. Michelle Patrick as the first female president of RMU.
I get to work with other really strong women that are in leadership positions, and I can, be open to whatever.
I can represent women. I can encourage other women to join this organization and be a part of the media world.
I love all the opportunities I get to have, and luckily I've had a lot of great people along the way to help me. I get to explore every aspect from social media to photography to videography and broadcast production, so it's just a ball.
Being in Century gives me lots of professional development experience as well as leadership experience, and I get to help work with other wonderful women.
Because I'm a woman in a male-dominated media industry, we get to offer our unique perspectives and keep breaking barriers that are still around today for women in media. It's a really good environment, and even though there aren't a lot of women in Century, it is a good environment, and we would hope for more women to join Century Media.
Being a woman in the sports industry is also truly inspiring. Also working alongside women, it keeps you motivated to keep going every day. Being in an industry that is, more male dominated. So if you're thinking of joining Colonial Sports Network, definitely do it. It will change your life.
I get to be able to do TV, I can do radio, I can write, I could do sports, take pictures. It's just a really great opportunity, and I get to be around wonderful and beautiful ladies. Women in power.
Welcome back to Colonial Sports Center. So as Cam mentioned before the break, we've got a bunch of hockey to talk about, and we're going to start with two former RMU women's hockey players that recently won the Isabel Cup playing for the Toronto Six in the Premier Hockey Federation. That would be Lexi Templeman and Brittany Howard, both former RMU players. They played together in 2017-18. Templeman, 24 games played for the Toronto Six, 5 goals and 8 assists. Howard, 20 games played, 16 goals and 10 assists. They won the CHA regular season championship in 2017-18, and Templeman won a national championship last season with the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Now, as you guys know, RMU finally brought back both of their hockey programs. And if you're going to bring back programs, you need to bring in some players, and that's exactly what they've done. And we're going to take a look at some of the men's players that have been brought in recently. And starting off, we got some of the forwards. We got Matt Hutton, Cam Ebert, and Gavin Goulash all returning. Dallas Toke from Ferris State was a transfer. He's the man in red, and then in the Ferris State jersey on the corner. And then joined for 2023 are Harles Merkley, Dominic Schmitzy, and Matt Bogzar.
It's definitely important to have a mix of the returnees, some incoming freshmen, and some transfers. As I mentioned before with basketball, it's definitely super important to have transfers. Now, moving on to another piece of the 2022-24 roster, Jackson Reineke, Anchorage Wolverines, the North American Hockey League. He had 57 points in the 2022-23 season in just 52 games. 57 points put him 7th in the league. McKay Hayes was the points leader for the Markham Royals of the Ontario Junior Hockey League. 31 goals and 50 assists for 81 total points. Cam, absolutely dominant. And Mitch Andres, a defenseman, a transfer from Boston College, who you won't see listed here because he announced that he was going to transfer in just a couple of hours ago. He played in 42 games over the last 2 seasons for the Eagles.
Yeah, RMU really bringing in some good players. And
you have to.
Yeah, you
You're
have
going
to.
to contend. You have to bring in some players.
And then a couple more that they brought in on the defensive side of the things. They brought in Thomas Gangle and Gabrielle Loon. The Lucas Van Wyse. Loon and Van Wy are both from the NAHL. Thomas Haynes and Michael Craig both coming in. Oh, my bad. My apologies. Thomas Haynes and Thomas Gangle both coming from the CCHL, and Michael Craig coming in from the BCHL. And then they brought in a goalie transfer named Chad Veltri from Niagara. He looks like he's going to be a very good player graduate.
Absolutely, and the only goalie on the men's hockey roster right now, but you got to have a goalie.
Yeah, and he's a local kid from Fox Chapel too.
So you got to have a goalie if you want to have a hockey roster. Now, on the other side, we've got the women's hockey roster. Obviously, earlier we talked about the 2 former women's hockey players that won that championship, but now we're going to take a look at the current roster for the 2023-24 season of RMU women's hockey. So first off, 2 incoming freshmen, Maya Nugent and Callie Arnold. Janelle Evans from the Canadian Sports School Hockey League. Catriona Craver is the name to know here. She had 11 goals and 30 assists last year in the Ontario Women's Hockey League. Those Ontario players, they're definitely producing a lot of very nice players up in Ontario.
Yeah, and hopefully it's going to mean a lot of wins for this women's Colonials team whenever they come in next year.
Absolutely.
Now, a couple more forwards they brought in. 2 players from the Chicago Mission, Bryn Levison and Lindsay Smolin, and then a transfer from St. Cloud State. She actually used to be at RMU, went to St. Cloud State, now she's back. That's Courtney Hall. And then on the defensive side of things, Caitlin Shooney and Thalia Diella, they are both coming in on the defensive side of things.
And the final update of the 2023-24 roster, Chase Sperling, St. Cloud State. She returns after playing for RMU. Got 3 returners, Jillian Thompson, Weston Rice, and Allison Ebert. And just 1 goalie right now, Maggie Hatch. And that rounds out your RMU women's hockey roster update for the 2023-24 season.
After the break, we've got my personal favorite part of the show. Between top 5 plays and comic of the week, you'd be silly to do anything but stay right here on Colonial Sports Center.
Today, we face an unprecedented crisis. Tens of millions of refugees have been forced from their homes. But you can make a difference. Turn disruption and despair to hope and opportunity. Even small amounts make a big difference. Provide shelter, support, or jobs in your community. The more we understand, the greater sense of belonging we create. Act now. Visit supportcrisisrelief.org.
Where are they? Shouldn't they be here by now?
Someone's gotta be here, guys. Like, for real.
Oh my god, Nate! Isn't it Thursday?
Oh, crap. Finally! Finally here. Let's go!
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome back to Colonial Sports Center. It's now time for Cam's favorite part of the show, my favorite part of the show, and I think it will
Probably
be everybody's
everyone's
favorite part of the show, top 5 plays in Colonial sports from the past week. We're going to kick things off, where else but number 5, lacrosse, RMU women's lacrosse. Jordan Anderson, unassisted. She's going one-on-one, and she will score her 3rd of the season, cut the deficit to 15-8. And as we mentioned earlier with Sam Goldberg here, it's very nice to see some players getting experience against a tough UC Davis team.
For the number 4 play of the week, we stay at the Joe for men's lacrosse at Cleveland State. You guys saw this one a little earlier. Will Johansson carries ball top of the zone, finds Taggart Clark for a beautiful high-to-low goal, and that is your 4th best play of the week.
We'll see more from the RMU Cleveland State game later, and we saw a play earlier that should definitely be number 1. Number 3, women's lacrosse, Colleen Tift, unassisted. She's going to go around the defender and score her 10th of the season. Made it 7-4 UC Davis. Just gets the good angle, and that was the key, getting good angles and getting around the defenders, so you're able to get it right past the goalie.
Colleen Tift, that's a name you just said, and I'm going to say it again. She fakes right, makes the defender lose her shoes, and just has an easy goal right on the doorstep, right in front of the goal. Slams her stick down in excitement, and here's another replay of that beautiful goal. Really just lost the defender there.
Number 1, more from the Cleveland State game. Liam Keene gets the ball to Will McLeod, who goes behind the back 5-hole and scores the first goal of the game. Colonials would go on to win 11-6. What a play by Will McLeod. That is your number 1 play of the week.
Now, it's been a while, but it's time for my favorite part of the show.
Everything's your favorite part
It is,
of the
but
show.
this is really my favorite. CSC's Comic of the Week. We're going to head to the Joe for the lacrosse game, where pretty simply, the net decided it didn't want to be there anymore.
The wind was absolutely terrible. The weather was
insane.
terrible, upwards of 50 miles an hour, and this wind would have made anyone blow away, but this net was just not having it, blowing off its moorings. The team and some assistants actually had to put some weight plates on it with some of the wacky weather from this past week.
Nate Randall, RMU's goalie, even trying to fix it there, and that isn't the only time it would blow away. It blew away 2 different times during this game. They took a while for them to reset this and just get the game back on.
Inside the 5-yard line, looks like it's trying to score a touchdown.
It could go all the way.
There
it goes.
Touchdown across
net.
the goal line for the net. That is your CSC comic of the week. Now, Cam, we just talked a bunch about the past week in Colonial Sports. What is your game to watch coming up in Colonial Sports?
My game to watch, little inter-city rivalry as RMU is going to take on Pitt at RMU's home place, which is something you don't always expect from such a big college like Pitt. But my players to watch are going to be Elena Kuto-Johnny, who even though she hasn't been hitting crazy this year, got 337 on base, and she might take the stolen base record.
My game to watch is women's lacrosse at Youngstown State. First game of MAC conference play. RMU player to watch, Chelsea Coleman, 14 goals. She leads the team. That's going to do it here on CSC. For Cam Wickline, Samuel Goldberg, I'm Kevin Plow.